Do you want a song or not? Just tell me.
Do you want a song? Well, yeah, I always want a song. All right, I jumped the gun.
We're just excited.
Nico's got me all hyped about a secret topic. All right, here, let's go.
Podcast 137.
Also. Oh yeah.
Nico's got a secret topic he's gonna ask me about. I don't know what it's about.
All right, sick.
Gorgeous.
Dude, this guitar sounded good, man. That's a nice sounding guitar.
Hey, thanks. It's a
Fender.
Fender.
That's thanks. I
was gonna buy a Martin, and then you were like, "Look, Jake, you've been playing guitar since you were 12. It's okay, you can buy a Martin." And I was like, "Yeah, but I don't think I play enough, you know." And I almost did, but then I found this all black Fender at a local music store, and I bought it.
There's something about that local music store that just gives things a magical sound
and a magical price.
Exactly. Yeah.
So today's topic, Jake, is Adobe versus Resolve / Blackmagic versus Foundry and Nuke.
The war's on.
So
the war is on.
And Adobe is losing.
We've had a lot of issues with Adobe products in the studios, particularly Premiere. Just being like literally fresh installed, a fresh computer, and just does not work right off the bat. The point was like, is this program broken? Like, what is going on?
Matt lost a whole day of work just last week because there wasn't anything particular that he was doing. He was just assembling footage, and the file just corrupted, and like he had to like redo the entire project file.
Oh.
Yeah, it's the worst. And this stuff happens
totally random.
So
there was
often.
no explanation for it.
So Ren made a tweet today, Jake, and we're gonna read through this tweet thread here. We'll give you the live reading.
Okay, let me pull it up.
Oh, it's a spicy one.
It's juicy.
Yeah. Here, I'll play Ren. Okay. After Effects needs to be rewritten from the ground up, or I'm not using this fucking program anymore. And I kind of have to.
It's one of those kind of tweets.
I kind of have to agree with him, but honestly, it's really Premiere that needs that. I mean, with both of them. Let's be real.
Yeah.
Yeah.
After Effects at least kind of works half the time, and so then Adobe responds. Who wants to be Adobe?
They responded.
Right.
Hey, Ren, we're here if you need us. We can bring specific issues to devs, offer troubleshooting suggestions, or put you in direct contact with someone on the team. Happy to help. Let us know what's going on with your app, Caroline.
Should I be Freddie?
Yeah.
Freddie replied too. Oh God,
you're
this
trying
is
your
gold.
best, but social media alone cannot pay the accumulation of decades of technical debt. Lol.
Yep. Lol.
With interest.
And then, this is back to you,
Caroline.
Jordan.
Oh, did she respond to Freddie?
Looks like it.
Oh, nice. Doing what I can. Lol. Oh, she lulled. These threads really do get sent up the ladder and help us move mountains. Every little bit helps. Caroline.
Oh, the
All right.
next comment. Sweet.
Hey, Caroline, you can send this podcast to the executives also.
You guys are going hard in the paint today. I love it. Let's go.
All right. Oh, man. Dude, all right. So Adobe, I don't know if you're listening, but boy, DaVinci Resolve is so stable.
It's so
and
good.
It's so smooth, and it uses all of my GPU. When I fire out my performance meters, and I see my GPU at 100%, it makes me feel like it was worth it when we put our blood, sweat, and tears into making these machines. It's just, it's nice. And oh man, I installed Premiere 2022.
You know what I just realized? Nico's not even sitting upright.
Yeah. This is therapy at this point. Yeah.
He's like, Fenner and Jordan are your therapists,
yes.
and you are on the therapy couch right now.
Welcome to
I'm lying
Adobe
down,
therapy.
just, when you wear a sling, one of the best feelings in the day is when you get to stretch your shoulders out backwards just a little bit. And like I'm living life right now. So I'm lying down. Feels great. I can work from a horizontal position today thanks to this podcast.
Good. That's great.
But yeah,
right, you were saying.
So I was running a little like color space test. I just needed to import like a ProRes file and like change a value. Like it was the most basic of things. I'm like, well, I might as well install Premiere 2022, the most recent version, right? Instead of I was using 2020.
Uh-oh.
So I did, and I installed it. I always keep the old versions just in case. And
Mhm.
I open it up and I drag in the, .mov ProRes file, and then I put in my timeline, and then it just doesn't load. And it's like, really? A fresh install of 2022, the most recent up-to-date version. All I did is I just dragged a ProRes file, the most basic of operations, into the dang timeline, and then it won't render in the window. And it's like, really?
Why
It's
can't
that
it render
bad?
Why can't it render in the window?
Why can't it render in the viewer? And it's like, oh my gosh, like it's like opening Word and then just like the letters aren't there.
Right. you hit R and it gives you F, and you're just like, no, I don't know. No, I don't want this.
Yeah, and it's like, well, what can they do to help? It's like, I don't need to fix this for you. Like, we're paying $50 a month times what, like times 10 or something like that, just to like get all these like licenses.
Well, okay. Let me just.
Sorry.
So
So
I bought.
okay, I'm chilling out.
No,
I'm bringing it back
so
down.
I have
entertaining.
there's a couple of reasons. I'd love to go into theories about why this is. Perhaps we could bring on like the CEO of Adobe.
Bring on Caroline.
CEO has been CEO since 2007.
Oh, wow.
It is. It's a man named Shantanu Narayan. He's an Indian American business executive, and he's 58 years old. Now, if we can bring on Mr. Narayan, we can get into the actuals of why this is. So there's that opportunity. But I'd love to hear it from all you guys in your experience, what this has been like as well.
I mean,
but my thought is because look at their stock price.
Oh, I'm intrigued.
Ooh.
Yeah, it just keeps. I mean, it's come down a ton, but
It just keeps going up.
it went up from like it's gone down in the last year since the pandemic has come to a close.
Right.
But from 2011 to like even before that, all the way up to 2021, it just kept going higher.
No joke.
Like there was, it went from like $28 in 2011. This is December 2011 to December 2021 being $650.
Well, they really pioneered the whole like subscription service, like professional software thing, except it's just they haven't backed it up with the professional software side when it comes to like Adobe Premiere, in my opinion, and to an extent now After Effects. Like, there's some things that are cool, but it's like professional to me means I can rely on it for my business. And when you lose a day of work because the program just on its own, not because you're doing anything special, it's just on its own, it shits the bed, and there's not even like a thing in there to deal with it shitting the bed, means like, what are you doing with our money? Like, it's like, I'm okay paying subscription prices for professional software, but like, I feel like they're in a state now because it's subscription. They're constantly trying to do updates and they're constantly trying to show new things because those bring in new subscriptions, but they're just putting more floors on like this creaky, like patchwork cinder block.
Yeah, it's like a turn of the century farmhouse, and they're trying to do like a McMansion out of it.
Yeah,
and it's
here's
like
a new fancy windmill to like get electricity
Yeah.
at the top. It's like, wow, it's really shiny and cool and futuristic, but the base is, this old farmhouse. Yeah.
Power keeps
why
going
do
out.
they have 26,000 employees?
Oh my gosh.
That's a lot.
Why do they
That's a
need
lot.
26,000 employees?
I don't know, man. That's a lot of people. I
To
mean, they
work
have a
on
lot
software?
of programs. They have like, 60 or 50 programs or something like
And
that.
they've absorbed a lot of others, like
Yeah.
all the Substance Painter
Yeah,
stuff like that
that's
they
true.
took on. And Mixamo, I have to say thank you for that. That's
Mixamo is great.
fantastic. That's Adobe, correct?
Yeah,
Mixamo is
they
Adobe.
do
Yeah.
own Mixamo. Yeah.
That's nice.
Yeah.
Yeah,
But-
Mixamo's wonderful.
But yeah, it's just like those main programs. And, when you're troubleshooting and you are troubleshooting for hours on end and it's nothing to do with you, that is the most infuriating feeling in the
Yes.
world.
Oh,
I find peace in my heart if it's my fault.
I felt so bad for Ren today. 'Cause,
Yeah.
like we've all been there, and it was just like everything you're doing is causing the program to crash. and it should be like he was doing. I believe he was saying it was just a roto mask.
Yeah,
And
just a simple, very, very simple mask.
No.
Yeah.
And that
it
was enough
just-
for it to go, nah,
Yeah,
I don't feel like it.
A roto mask in After
Yeah.
Effects.
and it was just
Yeah.
exploding.
Like
There's this-
if I'm a baby and I want to do a roto mask, you're gonna tell me to do it in After Effects.
Yes.
Yeah,
That's
like
where,
the most
that's where
rude-
everybody starts the first roto mask.
hmm
Can you imagine how
Oh my-
traumatizing that baby would be? How traumatized that baby would be when the roto mask doesn't work in the very first time? They'll question their reality. They don't know what to think.
Hey guys, Jake Watson here, and normally I do these brand integrations for you all, but today I've got to tell you about something that's really been life-changing for me, okay? You see, I was once a humble video creator, maybe much like yourself, sitting in front of my computer, trying to find a way to cut my video scenes together, and I realized that I had shot no connective tissue whatsoever to tie one scene to another. I started to panic. I had a mental breakdown. I lost my job. I became homeless for a little while, and then I really did some soul searching, and I realized that was because I didn't have a stock asset resource for all my stock asset needs. But courtesy of today's sponsor, Storyblocks, life's so much better now. Things are really looking up because you know what? I don't have to go out and soul search and do the incredibly laborious and time-consuming work of trying to shoot my own B-roll or collect my own stock images for the connective tissue in my videos. So you see, the thing about Storyblocks is they have a virtually unlimited library of high quality 4K B-roll, images, audio, assets, and more. And you can get it all royalty free with their unlimited all access plan. It's what we use here at Corridor Digital all the time since discovering this. But seriously, guys, if you are serious about creating, you're gonna need a stock asset tool. And the best one that we've found is Storyblocks. So that's why it's such an easy integration here. It's easy for me to tell you, hey, we use them all the time, we use them every day. Honestly, it's a phenomenal tool, they're a great team, and it's a wonderful resource for creators. So if you guys are interested in getting started for yourself, head on over to storyblocks.com or just click the link in the description of this video, or go to storyblocks.com/CorridorCast. And again, huge thank you to them for always sponsoring this podcast and always being a part of the Corridor Digital creative journey. Head on over to storyblocks.com/CorridorCast. And now, back to the podcast.
There's a plugin that just dropped for After Effects called Workflower, and it does so many things that should be built into the program that are sitting there explicitly requested by people for years. And just once again, it's like, what are you guys doing? What are you waiting for? Who is calling the shots
Yeah.
on what's going into this program? Like, and why are they calling these shots? Like, it has basic things like, hey, putting a filter to multiple layers at the same time and controlling it from one filter. It has things like, specified adjustment layers like Photoshop. So you can be like, all right, this adjustment layer is going to feed out to these 3 layers and only affect those 3 layers.
Yeah.
And these are like basic, necessary things that After Effects has needed for over a decade.
Mhm.
More than that, it's needed it since it's been invented, And just, yeah, it really frustrates me. But you know what? At the end of the day, we've started looking for alternatives, and that's just the reality. Like, we haven't gotten hard in advertising that we are moving away from Adobe, and like we still pay for a bunch of licenses because we need to have these licenses because people still use Premiere and After Effects. But we've made a really heavy shift to DaVinci Resolve for all of our editing. And Fenner's coming in here and he's preaching about Nuke, but I've been poking around in Fusion also, and just you start to see some things, in this. It's like being in North Korea, and then you get out of North Korea, and you start to see some of these other things that exist in the world.
Adobe is North Korea.
Look, I'm being
You're
very
like,
hyperbolic.
How did this happen? What is this?
What's a node?
But it's very true because you don't know what you're missing until you're out of there.
Yeah.
And the minute that you leave North Korea, you realize like, oh shoot, no, there's some incredible tools
Yeah.
that make so much sense just logically when you're trying to composite. Like Fenner showed me a bunch of stuff that I go, oh my gosh, like this would be the greatest plugin in After Effects history. Oh no, this would be the greatest and it's just so many of those that you go, why isn't this working on that same level?
Yeah.
And you just have to assume it's priority at this point.
Yeah.
Like the priority is new subscribers, maybe below prosumer level, you kind of have to just assume that's what they're focused on.
Yeah.
And if you're just like, hey, what program to edit my videos, and you're like beginner creator, and you capture a couple MP4s and you throw them in your timeline and you're like, oh, okay, I cut it together. Look, that was better than the free software on my computer that came with the computer or whatever. And maybe that's all they're going after. I don't know. I think looking at their numbers again, their financials, their gross profit in 2018 was 7.8 million. 2019 9.5 million. 2020 11.1. 2021 13.9. So they've. But for a company that has 26,000 employees with a market cap of 200 billion. To only be profiting that much seems like, what are they spending their money on? I don't know, but it seems like that's more what they're interested in, and just like than their actual like professional use of their tool.
It doesn't feel like they exist to try to make the best software right now. It feels like they exist to get the most subscribers, and software is the tool, the ends to their goal. And, you know, I get it. You know, you need resources and money to make your stuff. But, you know, I wish companies out there that were stood for like these things, like Adobe stands for creative software. Like, I wish that was truly their priority, and the flow of their money demonstrated that. You know, things were like, hey, we're going to reapproach Premiere and rebuild it so it's stable and has a modernized plugin infrastructure. It has basic things. It has like an ACES workflow for color, you know, things like that, where it's just like, let's reestablish this and let's make it work. And I know it's not going to be cool because we're not going to have any new features for 2 years, but you know, I think Adobe's wrong that they don't think that this is not going to cost them money, or that it isn't costing them money. Like if Adobe turned around and went, hey guys, we spent 2 or 3 years or however many years it takes building these pieces of software now from the ground up. They're modernized, they're stable, the UIs are clean. Like, we redid it. Like, I would jump back in a heartbeat. Like, great, awesome, take my money, let's go. You know? Yeah,
with that many employees, you feel like that should be doable as well. Like, imagine how awesome it would be if, because I learned started all my VFX stuff using Photoshop, After Effects, Premiere.
Yeah.
Like, and it's imagine if that was like, we could live in that Adobe ecosystem for all of our work, like, and it worked, like, because it would be so nice. Like, but now it's like, I don't know, man. You go and use like DaVinci and it's just like, oh, it just works, and it's like so much better.
Yeah.
And that you know, the ACES thing for me was the first time that I really kind of realized the issues.
Same.
Like for the first, because me and Nico, we were playing around with ACES for To the Death. And
that's the lightsaber video.
The lightsaber video. And, you know, it's quite a convoluted setup, and it's funny because every renderer now respects ACES, and a lot of them default to it. Like I know Redshift defaults to ACES, and of course, you know, Nuke has a very, very competent and quick way of working in ACES, and all the color works and makes sense. And I even tried just recently to go back and run something through After Effects through the ACES pipeline, and the color just wasn't right with my render. It just wasn't understanding what I wanted. And it's very frustrating because it should be just up and running like everyone else is. Yeah. Everyone else has carried the baton that much further. And it's almost like coasting on name recognition. I almost think of a parallel to BioWare. I don't know if you guys know the game company BioWare, where it was like they were the gem. They were like, oh, they made the best stuff. And I think they got acquired, but you know, they lost focus over time, and then it was more about the money than the game. Yeah, there you go, EA.
Yeah. So sorry, I misquoted the revenue. It's not millions, it's billions. But
that seemed really small.
I was gonna say, that's like,
what a switcheroo.
But it still follows your point, Jordan.
Yeah. So I mean, that's my thing. Is, you know, the focus. I mean, with EA, there you go, is on prioritizing how much you can bring in and way less on the art, or in this case, the software. And it tells, but now it's getting to a point where us who have been loyalists, or at least I know, you know, Nico's been a loyalist, I've been a super loyalist since I started, are now fed up enough to leave. Yeah. And I feel like that's indicative of what's the sentiment out there.
Getting Ren to swear.
How dare you?
It's like, it's not the first time it's crashed on him. It's not the 10th time it's crashed on him.
Yeah.
It's not the 100th time it's crashed on him.
Yeah.
It's like, we're talking like thousands of times. And it's like, I'm done. I get that feeling, you know? It's just like, really?
Yeah.
This is what happened with Final Cut like 12 years ago.
Yeah.
It used to be Final Cut used to be the shit.
Yeah, it did. It did. Final Cut 7. It's funny because, you know, when a program crashes, typically I'm like, oh, did I do something? You know, when Houdini crashes, typically I've been overbearing. If I just give it time, it'll sort itself out. But if I'm too aggressive, I'll crash it. As soon as it crashes in After Effects or in Premiere, I know it's not me. I'm immediately guilt-free because I'm so used to it now. That I'm just like, well, it's not my fault. I just got to try again. I'm going to do the exact same thing I did last time.
Adobe alibi.
Yeah, legit. So, yeah, man, I feel the same way. It's sad.
You know, for those of you listening to this right now who are in the video editing and filmmaking business, like the things to me that I've been surprised to discover that I really like when I've moved away from Premiere and into like Resolve, for example, is having a full-on color grading like tool set that's built in parallel to my editing tool set, and they are both like tailored to be the best that they can be at what they are. It's like in Premiere you have Lumetri, which is a great plugin, but it's a plugin, and so it operates out of a little side-scrolling window, and then you have your viewer, and the UI is basically the same UI that you're using for editing. And like, sure, you can like shift your windows around a little bit, but at the end of the day, it's like a one-size-fits-all UI. Whereas in DaVinci Resolve, I can be editing and I flip over to color grading. It's a completely different UI that's focused on color grading. And so really you get two full-blown tools that are built for the normal process of your edit, because you have to color at some point if you want it to look good. And of course you have to edit it at some point if you want to have anything that even comes out of your computer at some point, you know? So it's like, it acknowledges that these two tools need to coexist side by side, and they need to be what the best that they can be in and of themselves. And just like that shift of thinking was like, wow, it's not janky. It's like, I get something that's just really nice. And like another thing that's really stood out to me is just, you know, we spend money on building nice computers. You get a bunch of CPU power, you get a bunch of RAM. And these days we go and we drop a bunch of money on GPUs. And a lot of Adobe products, you know, Premiere and After Effects ones, again, they talk about how their GPU accelerated, but they really never scratch the surface of what your GPU can do. Like more often than not, my GPU is sitting there like 20%, 30%, because so much of the rest of the code is all old, janky, single-threaded code, and it chokes up on your computer. It doesn't matter how fast or how many processors you got. It just matters how fast that one processor is, you know, that one single thread. Because it's just, there's so much old script that's just like running. And then to like jump over once again to DaVinci Resolve, and you're working your edit and you see that this computer, like all the money that you spend on these parts is not going to waste. And your life itself is being preserved because you have more time and it's run smoother and you get to see higher frame rates and you get to watch it in higher resolution. And like the beauty of the work that you're doing starts to show. It's like, you know, you sit there and you work in Premiere and you're working with your little proxy files and it's all flat and it looks shitty because it's not color graded yet. And you're like, oh, my film looks like crap. And you just sit in this state of negativity until you finally get to finish it and color it. And you're like, oh, it actually turns out it was all right. Whereas in DaVinci Resolve, from day one, you're like, oh, this is beautiful. My film's looking good. I can make it look even better. And like when we did To the Death, like the lightsaber thing, we did all the lightsaber effects in DaVinci Resolve in the Fusion pages. And everything has, you know, there's the correct ACES workflow and the linear light workflow. So as we apply like these glows and these lens flares and these streaks, like they just come to life in this vibrant, realistic way. And you're like, oh, my movie, it looks good.
Yeah.
It inspires you. And like, that's such a shift. And like, these aren't like, you know, software points, you know, you can't fix this like with a little like update. Like this is just an approach to the philosophy behind the programs, and you feel it as an artist working in them.
Yeah, and you're able to stay in that creative like flow state because it's not constantly crashing on you and you have to restart.
Right,
and then you're like, oh, I lost a day of work. Oh, geez. Like Matt losing a day, that's insane. Like, and like you're saying, it's a professional product. Like it's not, that's like
it's not discounted. Yeah.
Like,
You're paying full whack for it.
Yeah. It's insane.
Right. And you know, he's got his finger on the Control S like buttons because everybody does.
Yeah.
So it's not like, oh, he lost a day of work because he didn't hit save. You know, it's like no,
the save file becoming corrupt. It's crazy.
Yeah. Right. I don't have to save anymore, guys. I don't have that trauma anymore because DaVinci Resolve saves every single move you do in real time.
Mm-hmm.
So there is no saving anymore.
Oh, it's beautiful.
Oh, and it's stored in a server database. So it's a much more solid, harder to corrupt file format that you can share with other people at the same time. You can have multiple people working in the same DaVinci Resolve file. So somebody can be like organizing clips, somebody can be color grading, and somebody can be editing. Somebody can be editing a different sequence all at the same time in the same file. And it works. It doesn't crash. I mean, look, DaVinci Resolve has crashed on me before. All right. It's crashed a few times.
Just not thousands of times.
Yeah, and every time it crashes, I boot it up, and then I literally resume from the very last click I just did.
Yeah.
It's like, yeah, whatever.
Are there crash files with Premiere? I'm trying to remember because I've never, like, in working in Houdini, it's crashed a couple times, and literally almost every single time was my fault.
Mm-hmm.
And I admit that on camera here.
And how is it your fault? As in, like,
I'll overburden it, right?
Okay.
Houdini's does a very good job of handling a ton of complex information. It just needs time to do the math. But I'm over there tapping it on the shoulder, going, "What's it looking like? What's it looking like?" And it's like, "Stop, dude!" And then it'll crash and say, "No, I'm not doing this anymore." And I have to apologize and open it up again. But every single time, it gives me a crash file that works flawlessly. I mean, it happened on the VFX Iron Artist. You know, my entire scene crashed because I was pestering it, and it immediately opened up, and it was back from the last click, like Nico's saying.
Wow.
And I don't remember ever having that in my life until now. And I'm wondering, maybe it's a feature that I missed. I could just be ignorant to it, but I don't remember that being a thing.
Here's the thing: if it's a feature that you missed in like other products, like Adobe, isn't that a sign that it's a flawed product?
Yeah,
like,
it's not well integrated at all.
Yeah, that's valid.
Like, robust saving should be the number one, the biggest priority, more important than literally anything else in your program if you're making professional software. Like, and you shouldn't have to think about it. I don't need to check the fucking autosave box. Like, that should be checked before I install the goddamn program.
But your cache files, man. What are we gonna do?
Wait, but do you want to autosave it? Yeah, you want to autosave it. God damn it.
Oh, this feels good. It feels good to be doing this.
So if they have 26,000 employees and they've got $15 billion of annual revenue, why don't they take that? And so it's like, we got the farmhouse, right? And now the farm has literally thousands of acres. and all you're saying is like, hey, you know what? Let's just take a few of these people who are working on the electric windmill, and we'll just bring them over here, and we're just going to build a new house.
Let's pour a nice strong foundation to build
a modern
from.
farmhouse.
Yeah, a modern foundation for modern tools, modern hardware.
Up to code.
Yeah, up to code. Please make your house up to code.
Yeah. They're gonna bury the pipes below the frost line, and it's gonna have a nice atrium when you walk in, and it's gonna have air conditioning.
Can't get them.
Yeah. It's not going to have an outhouse that was converted into an extension of the original farmhouse. It's going to have a new bathroom.
Oh my God. It's like, you know, the uncle rolled up with a really cool trailer like 2 years ago, and they're like, oh, that's really neat. And they just like nailed it to the side of the house. Kind of door in the wall.
Like, hey, get those guys in here. Get your uncle and his crazy friends in here. Those guys are doing good.
Bring in Uncle Substance. Come on.
It's not a good sign when a software that you love gets acquired and you're upset. Like, I remember when Substance got acquired and I was legitimately upset. And that's, you know, because I'm assuming, okay, well, what's going to happen to it now? You know?
Yeah.
And that's the thing that drew me back to, I did Android for a little bit, you know, the dark ages of my life. And
Android?
I came back
you
to
mean as in like your phone?
Phone, yeah.
Okay.
And I came back to
how
iPhone
dare
because
how dare you?
Yeah, a lot of people disagree with me, but the reason I came back was just, it worked. Like, it's seamless, it's effortless, it's there when I need it, it's reliable. Like, that's worth so much.
That's true. Not every Android phone, or not every Android operating system on every phone is the same experience.
Yeah, no, Android has a lot of jank, and that's why people, depending on your hardware and what version you have, like, it can be janky.
Yeah, and this was 7 years ago too, so
that was
but
a
it can
big
still be
problem
janky.
Fair enough.
But
Samsung has it figured out. The Samsung Galaxies they're as good as the iPhones.
Nice.
I think.
Yeah. Point being, though, I just feel like, the attention to just working. That's so valuable. Just working, you know?
And elevating your craft.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
You know, and we're not saying like that node workflows are inherently superior to like layer workflows in After Effects. They're just different workflows. Like, It's like trying to say like, oh yeah, Photoshop's better than Dreamweaver. It's like those are two different programs that do two different things. But boy, there's other things that are just like, yeah, I don't know.
Mhm.
It's tough. It's tough. Like, how do you guys feel about the fact that what you need to use to work to create what you create is so dependent on other people making that tool for you?
Yeah, scary. Like,
Yeah.
yeah. I mean, imagine if all of a sudden, like, Houdini was just like, no.
No more.
We're gone.
No more.
Yeah, or like Adobe acquired them.
Oh my gosh, can you
You're right.
They
imagine?
just
Like,
they just
I-
shut it
We
down
don't
like
need to
Vine.
talk like that.
Yeah,
We don't
right?
need to
Like,
talk like
it
that.
could just happen. And then you're like,
Yeah,
searching through the depths of the internet to find an old.
Yeah.
you're
like,
so right.
copy of
And like you
Houdini.
dedicate, like I'm frustrated because I loved After Effects, and
Yeah.
Yeah.
I got quite proficient at it to where I could just zone out. I could watch a show, and when I look back at my screen, the shot's done because I just know where everything is. Very comfortable, and I liked that.
Yeah.
And I'm frustrated because I invested in them, and I don't feel like they invested back. I think
Yeah.
is the crux of it for me. And so so I'm going to Nuke, and now it's almost like you kind of have to start again. The fundamentals are there, but yeah, I don't know where all these things are just yet, and it's like this didn't have to be this way, but here we are. So
I think that's really well put. And like I have a bit of an ulterior motive too with seeing you guys, work on more on Nuke, which is, we're switching over to Resolve for our editing pipeline here at Corridor. We use Resolve for all the VFX Artists React, for the Corridor crew episodes. It's not used yet for crew cuts, I believe. But the thing is, Resolve has Fusion built in, which is like it's Nuke Lite, right?
Mhm.
But as you guys, Jordan in particular, like as you do more nodal based compositing, I'm hoping that like sometimes you'll just be like, I don't need to go out to Nuke for this. I can just stay in Resolve and use Fusion. And then the more that happens, the more like we start to understand that software package and just have it be this ultimate like Thanos gauntlet of like gemstones.
yeah,
And like you have Nuke if you want it, but for everything else, you just bang it out right in Resolve.
Yeah, I think
You
so.
know?
Like, even just like if it's like, okay, we're adding 100 muzzle flashes, like we don't need to be jumping into Nuke. It's like
Yeah.
you can handle that in like Fusion
Yeah.
real easy, and it's all node based, so it's the same kind of language.
Mhm.
Like I think the main difference is that Fusion, the nodes like extend out to the sides, whereas Nuke it's like straight up and
That's
down,
true.
and that's it. Like,
You can switch that by
yeah,
the way.
yeah, and then so then it's like it's basically the same thing.
Yep.
yeah.
It's-
As long as the fundamentals are the same, because like in Nuke, that was the biggest learning curve, I think, was just navigating the simple stuff. Like, okay, how do you handle roto masks
Mhm.
in this? Oh, okay, well, it has to run through this merge, set to mask. And okay, so it's like a different way of operating. But once that clicked, it felt very comfortable.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And now it's just, learning, really for me, the biggest hole is learning more about what happens between the sensor and the action. And that's what Fenner, you know so much about, where you're like, oh yeah, this is how the light is supposed to distort, and this is this and this is that. And you like add these layers on top of a render, and it just looks so good. And I'm like, man, that's the secret that I want to unlock eventually, is just how to think like that. But that, can be done in Fusion.
Yeah,
And that
exactly.
that's software agnostic at the end of
Yeah.
the day. That's true
Which is
power.
exciting. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's true. Exactly. So, yeah. Once you get past the bugs of After Effects and you move over into Nuke, the true power is possible. I haven't even been focused on the true power, just trying to get projects done.
It's like the various levels of like wizardry. Like once you get to a certain point,
Yeah.
it doesn't matter if it's like necro magic or like mana magic or like life magic or nature magic. It's just all magic and you can handle it.
Yeah.
You
Heck yeah.
might have to take a moment to like learn the new runes so you can read them or whatever. But like after that, it's like, I get it.
And what's funny? It's the exact same in Houdini as well,
Yeah.
where there are all these different branches of simulation, but the core information is the exact same.
Mhm.
So once you understand the fundamentals, now all of a sudden you can do all this kind of arcane magic.
yeah.
It's pretty special. It's exciting. So yeah, anywho.
I feel like we have really went hard. We've gotten our gripes out. Now, for those who might be listening, who, what about Caroline, guys?
Yes.
Oh,
Like what do we say to her? Is it her fault?
no.
No, of course
No,
not.
it's not
And,
Caroline's fault.
and Adobe has a lot of great products, by the way. Like in particular, we're ranting about Premiere and After Effects.
Mhm.
In particular. But yeah, I mean, yeah, what would you guys say? What would you guys say to Caroline if she were sitting next to us?
I'm
I'd say
sorry.
first, don't give us just hard stop on the marketing speech.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Right? Don't give me any of your marketing speak.
Yeah.
But like, let me hear from you on the real. Because, they give them, it's like at a company that size, it's like, okay, when you hear this is the packaged answer that we'd like you to say, right?
Yeah,
But
here's the boundaries
the
that you should
packaged
be in.
answer doesn't address the true thing, which is probably, hey, sorry, this is running on ancient code.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Maybe, but maybe if they announced like, hey, ladies and gentlemen, we're building a new farmhouse.
Mm.
It's going to be
Yeah.
great.
That
It's
would
going to have
be
rooms
I'd be
for
all about
everybody.
Or
Yeah.
just like
And they could-
speaking openly about what the problems are. Like
Mhm.
that's a thing that I really pride ourselves on here, is that because we don't work for any other company, we can just talk openly about stuff. Like we don't have politics to worry about in the film industry. Like when we see a janky VFX shot, we can say it's janky and no one can
that's so
stop us.
funny. I was listening to an old podcast where you were going on about that. And because, as the show, especially like a year into the show, as it started to get bigger and people became more interested in it, that's one thing that we've had to deal with is like
Yeah.
we get all these great guests, which is amazing and wonderful. But most of the time, they don't want to even critique in a constructive manner other people's work.
Mhm.
And there's a lot of reasons for why that is. In particular, I think it's just sort of trying to have a general respect for, the other professionals in their industry. But it's nice to be able to have the freedom to just go, well, yes. And also this didn't look good. Let's talk about why that is.
Yeah.
It's a hard enough craft as it is.
Mhm.
Like, it's like, it's incredibly difficult. And it's
And
not
then-
just how good you are as an artist. You could be the best artist in the world, but if you get the worst raw footage in the world,
Mhm.
that's still going to have a detrimental effect on the outcome.
Yeah, and here we can be open about like, yeah, we didn't quite pull this off, we had a mistake in this shot or whatever. Like, we don't have to worry about being perfect, and we can acknowledge our mistakes. If we don't have, millions and millions of dollars and egos and politics on the line, we can just be like, yeah, whatever. And then we can speak that way about other work too, to an extent. And obviously we're not ever trying to be disrespectful about it or just mean spirited, but it's nice to be able to talk openly about things. And like, so it'd be nice if Adobe could be like, yeah, here's where these problems are coming from. And we're just going to tell it to you straight.
Hmm.
It's because of this. And this is what we are actually doing to address it. Or this is not going to be addressed in the next couple of years or whatever, But
Yeah.
they're not obviously can't do that. Otherwise they would have
They
done it.
can't do that because their stock price will tank
Yeah, I was gonna say it's as soon as they
and
acknowledge
their
it.
subscription numbers will
like-
tank. Yeah.
But I feel like if they acknowledged it, but at the same time laid out like a plan to be like, hey, we're doing like Photoshop 2, and it's like rebuilt, After Effects, rebuilt, Premiere, rebuilt, and they laid out like a roadmap for that, then maybe they'd earn some sort of trust back from all the people that they've lost it from, like a lot of us.
I think
in
they
this
would.
room.
I think they definitely would. Like,
Yeah.
why not do that? Can you imagine if like Ford still just made Model Ts?
Yeah.
They're like,
sticking
guys,
by it.
the 2022 Model T is something else. Let me tell you why. It's like, it's okay. They came up with new models. They came up with better designs. They built new cars. And yeah, not all of them were winners,
Mhm.
but still, they're still here 120, 140 years later, or whatever it is.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And it's okay.
Yeah, it's always interesting seeing like, or just being like, oh, what's going to be the next technology that's going to take this out? Because eventually, like, nothing lasts forever. Eventually, something will take that down.
Right.
Like, what's going to be the next like compositing suite that takes down Nuke? Like, maybe it's Fusion. Maybe it's like something completely new. Like, I mean, in the industry for a long time, like Softimage was huge,
Right.
and then 3ds Max was huge.
Mhm.
And Maya.
And then Maya was huge. And now it's like, yeah, you know what? We have like,
Blender, I think
Houdini and
arguably
Blender.
Blender is
I
like
think-
the biggest
I-
one now.
I think
Blender's
Blender
growth
is
has
like,
been nuts.
yeah. And then like, yeah, it's surprising to me how much of a resistance there still is to programs like Blender because it's free.
Because it's
essentially.
free. That
Yeah.
I mean, that's honestly why I didn't pick it
Yeah.
when I was younger. It was like, I mean,
Yeah.
granted, it was a much different
Yeah, it was
software than
very
it is
different.
now. Very,
Yes,
very, very
totally.
different.
Yeah.
But I remember thinking, even at 16 or however old I was, oh, that can't be that good. Like,
Yeah.
what's the best one?
Well, I was
know what I mean?
always I was 3ds Max and then Maya, and then I was so fed up with Maya. It was probably like 3 years ago, and it was crashing on me over and over again. I was sick and tired of V-Ray, and then I downloaded Blender because it was the same thing. It was Maya would crash all the time because it's become such a bloated piece of software. Because they're just like trying to shove in like, oh, we're gonna throw XSI in there, and like they're trying to like amalgamate it into this like Frankenstein program that just crashes all the time. And then same thing, oh, your autosave is corrupt, and I'm just like, what is going on? Like, and so that's when I switched over to Blender, and I've been very impressed with it because again, I'd always heard like, oh, it's not professional software. I'm like, seems
You make it
seems
great
like
stuff.
it works.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
It's a hard thing to be intentional about growth.
yeah.
Like just from our own perspective of this tiny, because in the grand scheme of things, like Corridor Digital is this tiny little, boutique thing.
Yeah.
But even at the place that we're at, there's still all these temptations with like, oh, there's this new thing over here, and there's this new style of content over here, and there's this new output platform over here, and like, oh, if you just did this and a little bit of that, and then we did that.
Yeah, what if you did Facebook? What if you did Instagram? What if you did
yeah,
TikTok? What
and
if you did
Nico,
Vine?
you've
What if you
been,
did-
to your credit, you've been very deliberate about being like, no, let's focus on what plays to our strengths. Let's focus on distributing and creating for the things that play to our strengths, because it's already competitive enough just to get somebody to like see a video that you've done.
Right.
But I'm just saying, like, even at our tiny baby level, so I can't imagine what it's like when, you're this 35-year-old, or how old is Adobe? Where they're like 19.
90
I
something.
don't know how old I don't know how old they are exactly. Not 82. So they're 40
82.
they're
Oh,
a
wow.
40-year-old company.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And like what kind of opportunities, if you can call them that, where things come along and they go, hey guys, there's this little software company over here. We just bought them. We'd get all their subscribers and all their talent. But is it pulling you away from your core function?
Mhm.
And that's something that we always talk about too. Like, let's not just go, oh, let's just do this or do that because we could grow or we could make more money. It's because that if you're just chasing money, like,
Yeah. Intentional growth is so important. I was having a conversation about this last night with like in regards to VFX studios, and there's so much work in the VFX industry right now that every studio is like rapidly expanding, and they're just throwing money at whoever they can hire basically, and it's like so unsustainable, because then you end up with like a team of people that might not be competent and able to complete the work up to the quality, so then they're ended up doing insane amounts of overtime, and then you're having to pay them that overtime, and it's like you end up like, because you just were trying to grow, you end up like spending more money and like having less of a profit because you tried to like just jump into that growth rather than being like, okay, let's be intentional about this. Let's turn down a project. Let's like make sure we're putting the right people in place.
Yeah.
It's like so important.
That's why the pyramid's the best shape. Build the base as you build the height.
Yep.
Right?
Yeah.
Build a
and
base
then-
to support the height.
and then
Otherwise, you will topple.
and then
at
you
some
get
point.
5 people to subscribe, and then they get 5 more people to subscribe, and then all the money goes back to you, man. It's great.
It's science.
Wow, that sounds like a great deal, Jake. Tell me more.
I mean, that's the thing. There's like
Perfect
there's two ways
structure.
you can approach to like when you have more work than you can do. There's like 2 ways to approach it. One way is to grow and just take it all on, and the other way is to say no to things. And there's a time for A and there's a time for B, but I feel like more often than not, if people just pause and been like, "Do you want to do that?" No, it's not about the money. You have it. You can pick any job. You're gonna be working no matter what. But do you want to do that? And it's like, well, if I think about it that way, no. And it's like,
Right.
then don't do it.
Yeah. Actually, that was one thing that did come up when I first started working here. Was I was still getting the freelance offers on the side, and at first I was debating. I was like, well, my weekends are open. Like maybe I'll go work the weekends. You know what I mean? Just go on set and do this and the other. And I did that one time, and very quickly I felt very thin, spread very, very thin. And I thought, if I want to have a sustainable and good time here, I need to protect the weekends. And that's kind of a parallel, really, is, keeping the base strong so that you can, grow at a good rate. And
so
and
I
be
have this
sustainable.
problem. I have this problem because I'm constantly one that abides by the philosophy of, we were talking about this in another podcast, but never be satisfied with like the totality of where you're at. Always appreciate it, but always be striving to grow in another way and in another method and learn something new and just stay sharp and stay well-rounded. And I find myself constantly going, okay, so I incorporated this new thing in my skill sets or in the things that I know or the things that I'm good at. And then once I am able to find the balance of those things, I immediately go out and look for something else. And then and then you get that feeling again where you're spread too thin and you're overwhelmed and you go, I got to cut stuff out. I got to do something different.
Yeah, it's just this roller coaster.
It's interesting because I personally, in my own life, I feel like that sometimes where if it hadn't been for that, I guess, ambition of trying to learn and do new things, I wouldn't be, I guess I feel like as well-rounded or, as fortunate as I am. But if I would have just stuck with one thing, maybe that would have also had the same outcome. I don't know.
I think it's nice to be well-rounded. It makes life a lot more interesting and more exciting when you end up doing new things. But, we also have like that philosophy here of like, if you don't live life at all, you don't have anything to make art about.
Right.
That's why we try not to let people stay here too late. That's why we don't do all-nighters. That's why we try to go home on the weekends. That's why we have holidays off here and there. It's like, you got to live life. You got to you got to be a person with emotions and experiences and like stories. You're going to then come in and like put that on camera at all.
Well, fun story about the culture side of things here at Corridor for those who are curious. When I first came here, I was coming off obviously working freelance and, I wouldn't turn off. I'd just go and go and go and go and burn out and then take a break and then go. And when I first got here, one of the first projects we did, we were like a tad behind, I think, on the deadline we were aiming for. And I went up to Nico at the end of one day. I don't know if you remember this, but I was like, if you need me to stay, I can stay. I can do this tonight. Like I can get this done. And Nico, like he put his hand on my shoulder and he's like, it can be done tomorrow. Go home. And I was like, ooh, I like it here. That's very nice of you. So that was pretty cool. So
nice.
The balance it's important. It's super important.
Yes, it's super important. It's the whole thing, in my opinion.
Yeah.
So Adobe, if you're listening, please, maybe I know we're just little baby cockroaches to you, but maybe if you hear us.
But we live here too.
This is our
they definitely
farmhouse
like us more
too.
than that. We've spoken for them at NEP multiple times.
Listen, I'm just trying to make it easy for them to feel good about hating this podcast. Okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
There's room in our hearts for forgiveness.
Yeah.
And renewal. It's there. The possibility's there.
Even though you stepped on our cousin.
Hey, as far as I know, Adobe, Photoshop's still cool.
Yeah.
And Mixamo is great.
Mixamo's awesome.
But like, I could probably from this point forwards never use Premiere again. I think I've managed to cut it out of my diet entirely, and I think I can live without it completely.
Yeah.
Your content diet.
Yep. So I'm making that step, Adobe, and I'm down to come back.
Yeah.
I'm down to come back, but you gotta earn it.
You gotta earn it.
Premiere and After Effects free. Like that's a good. Feels
They're
good.
gonna have to come back with a bouquet of flowers and a fifth of wine.
Yeah.
And really apologize.
The Foundry was already flirting with us in those Batman comments. I don't know if you
Really?
saw
Really?
that.
I didn't know.
Yeah. They're like, wow, when you find out like the person you're a fan of is a fan of you. Like,
See, I wasn't sure if that was actually the Foundry or just somebody that had the name Foundry.
it's actually the
It's
Foundry.
actually Foundry. Okay, well, hey, the Foundry, if you're listening, if you give us licenses for all our computers, we will stop using Adobe in the studio. Period. We're gonna make it happen.
Let's do it.
We're gonna make it happen, and people are gonna struggle and they're gonna hate it. But you know what? We will do it.
Slide into our DMs.
I love the Foundry.
We will do it 100%. We'll go cold turkey. We'll still use Photoshop. Sorry, we're still gonna use Photoshop.
Yeah, Griffin needs Photoshop.
Asterisk. Photoshop's fine. It's great. We're still gonna use Mixamo.
Yeah. I won't
But,
though. I
yeah.
promise.
It'd be really sad though.
I don't even know how to use it. I won't use it.
We'll probably have like 2 or 3 Adobe like After Effects licenses still. Yeah.
Man.
Anyways, yeah. I hope anybody listening from the actual software teams, like, we've met people from all the companies, and they're wonderful people. And I hope if you guys are listening, you know that really at the end of the day, we're just looking for the best product. We know you guys are working hard. We wish the priorities were a little bit more focused. Not a little bit. Let me rephrase that. I'm gonna be honest. I wish the priorities were a lot more focused on making Premiere in particular and Adobe After Effects stable, modernized, rethought programs that acknowledge what we do in this day and age with video editing. And I know there's parts of it that do, but it's built on that old farmhouse that still has like Uncle
cracked
Ted's
foundation.
like,
It's
RV strapped to it.
It's an old farmhouse, and then they bought a bunch of acreage and they put a chicken producing manufacturing plant on the far acreage. And what we're looking for is like homegrown, we'll pay the premium to get the good chickens. We want you guys to make the good chickens and the good cows and the good pigs. And
we want the free range Adobe.
Exactly. We want the free range, and we'll pay the premium for it if it's worth it, because it'll taste delicious.
Yeah, definitely.
Well, thanks, Ren, for tweeting and starting this whole conversation.
Yeah.
I think that's the title of the pod. I think the title of this podcast is After Effects Needs to Be Rewritten from the Ground Up, or I'm not using this effing program anymore.
I like how Ren's not even here to partake in this.
Yeah.
Ren, what do you have to say for yourself?
I wanted Ren to be in on this cast, but he's researching for React.
Yeah.
That's
tomorrow's
such a
gonna
funny
be cool.
tweet.
We're looking at some good stuff.
Mm-hmm.
What are you looking at tomorrow?
Well, we're gonna finally look at that clip from Black Widow that made the rounds. The not so good VFX part.
Oh yes, I've seen this.
And I'm looking forward to kind of breaking down why it looks the way it does, and what's the situation it was in, and how they could have possibly reapproached it, and perhaps why they didn't.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, I like that in the past, you've acknowledged that a lot of this jank, so to speak, can come down to time
yeah, it can
and
be as simple as
money,
like,
resource.
yeah,
It's
it's like, here's the foreground character shot with studio lighting. Here's the background. It's sunlit clouds.
Yeah.
Do your best. It's like, all right, I'll do my best. And then the other thing I really like going into is like, so let's say you're given those same exact elements. What else could you try? What other things could you mess around with to try to like improve upon it? It's a classic like, oh, you've done lens flares, but have you tried chromatic
Camera
aberration?
shake.
Camera shake, yes. I mean, that's almost what every single one of these boils down to. We should make a plugin that it does all of those things at the same time: the camera shake, the motion blur, the chromatic aberration, the dirty lens
dirt,
flares,
Call it like the poop
glow.
polisher.
Yeah, the diffuse, and just one slider, and it turns all of those things up simultaneously or down.
It's like an
It's just
Instagram
VFX
filter. It just turns it up.
It's just Blender, like Image Blender.
Yeah. It has literally no features. You just import the video file, and then you just do the slider and hit export.
And it just slowly degrades and compacts all your footage together. The make real button.
Yeah.
Yeah. It turns out the solution is just to like turn the resolution down and recompress it 5 times.
Send it through Media Encoder. Uh-oh.
Oh, it crashed.
Another Adobe. Yeah, it crashed. Shoot.
Man.
Something must be wrong. Export every part of the timeline until you find the part that's failing.
Oh man. You know how many times we've had to just screen capture with shadow play, the playback in Premiere because it won't export and it'll crash? Too many times.
It's funny, you don't realize how many bad memories you have until it gets brought up.
I have so many stories. Now that I think about it, I have so many stories. Man, the part where it's like we waited like for years for Blackmagic RAW support, and eventually Adobe's just like, no. You have to get a third party because we don't want to help our competition. It's like, really, Adobe?
Oh my gosh.
That's
That actually reminds me when I was using Final Cut 7, and I totally forgot about this era where it couldn't handle certain.
Right.
Remember that? It
You had to
couldn't
make
handle
certain codecs.
Yeah. And then Premiere, that's what lured me over. I was like, I can just drag it into the bin and it loads in
Yeah.
everything at the time. And yeah, that was
How
one of the
about
most
that?
attractive features.
That was.
Yeah.
That was totally like mind blowing.
Yeah.
Man.
We're all just processing, just emotionally exhausted over here.
The war's over, guys. It didn't end the way we wanted, but it had an eventual outcome. And I think the outcome is we'll be using Premiere and After Effects as little as practicable.
And I sympathize for Caroline. I really do, because someone's got to do that job, right? Someone's
got
got
a
to
tough job.
step out in front of those bullets.
Oh, also, like, hey, everybody listening, did you know that DaVinci Resolve is free?
Oh yeah, little tidbit.
Yeah, a little tidbit. That's the one other thing. Like when I'm sitting there like logging into like Premiere for like the 5th time today because I jumped to my laptop from my PC and it's just like, and it's like Premiere. It's free. I can just open it at any computer and I can just use it.
That's great. Yeah, if
Yeah.
you think about it, if you're just starting out in visual effects,
It's
you have
free.
access to Resolve,
God.
which gives you access to Fusion, Blender, and Unreal
Yeah, you can.
for
Yeah.
Oh,
free.
and Unreal.
Yeah.
Yeah. Blender, Unreal, DaVinci Resolve, like
That's
Yeah.
crazy.
all open, not open source, but at least free.
Yeah.
So crazy.
That is nuts. That is
Mhm.
totally nuts.
Or $50 a month for
For
Adobe.
a program that will delete your work.
Oh man, crazy. Crazy.
Man.
Well,
I hope they're like encouraged by this. I hope this is motivating. I'm sure they're just like whatever. Yeah. Yeah. All right. Cool.
Yeah.
Thanks for listening to us rant
Yeah,
about
yeah.
Adobe,
All right.
everybody. Just a reminder,
I,
DaVinci Resolve, it's free. You should go check it out. They have
I'm
now
gonna
they
start-
now have AI depth maps in them, which is pretty crazy.
Dude,
they
they
have-
have thrown out features.
They have AI object masking in DaVinci Resolve now, like in Runway ML.
That's awesome.
You don't even have to rotobrush it. You just click on the person and then it cuts them out. You're like, oh, I'm done. So yeah.
Yeah.
I'm starting this song in D minor, the saddest of all chords.
Say D or B?
D minor.
D minor.
It's an ode to Adobe.
D for depressed. Oh, heavy heart.
After Effects needs to be rewritten from the ground up, or I'll stop using this effing program. After Effects needs to be rewritten from the ground up, or I'll stop using this effing program.
Oh,
You had to do the refrain with Freddie's tweet.
That's what I'll start the next podcast with.
Technical debt, technical debt.
Technical debt, technical debt, technical debt.